this chapter is kind of broken up into two sections, kind of like, you know, comparing signals, log, decibels, and the different and attenuation. Okay? Then it kind of gets into incidents and how sound interacts at different angles. All right. So this objective of this chapter is learning how sound behaves in different mediums. Discuss logarithms and decibels. Please, guys, don't delve too deep into the logarithms and decibels. I'm going to teach you exactly what you need to know. All right. So, identify attenuation and the three processes that attribute to it. Describe the half value layer and impedance. Interpret reflection, transmission, and refraction, which is transmission of the bend. All right. So we're going to try to probably get through this part right here today. Our first three objectives. Then we're going to probably finish the other two Wednesday, Friday. So you guys already know. As sound travels in a medium, it behaves in a specific manner according to, you know, the speed of that medium. So while it's in the medium, sound can either speed up or slow down. Okay. Again, that's why we have the long listening time, because we have to account for the distance traveled. That's why we have to wait on the sound to come back to us. Okay. So when sound propagates in the body, it moves from one medium to another. That's how we're able to see anterior. We're able to see the liver all the way to the right kidney. I'm thinking about a long right liver image, all the way to the right kidney. You know, we're able to see that interface, right? Because of how sound travels, is able to sound through different mediums. And the reason we can tell where the kidney begins and where the liver ends is because of the interface difference between those two. Okay? So when sound hits a different border or boundary, it's going to hit that boundary. Some of that sound is going to continue processing through and transmit. Some of that sound is going to reflect back to the transducer. Okay? Remember, the intensity that the sound reflects back to the transducer, that's going to equate to a level of brightness. Okay? If it's a high reflector, it's going to reflect back really white. If it's not a high reflector, it's going to transmit black, such as fluid. Fluid is going to continue to transmit. Okay? So images are created from weak reflector that sounds like the boundary between two different media, such as, that's how you can see like the capsule of the kidney. That's why you can see that whole like echogenic line of the diaphragm, because you're able to see the different boundaries of those media. Okay. The remainder of the wave continues to penetrate deeper into the next boundary, and another weak reflection is created. So again, as sound is hitting different boundaries, as it's penetrating deeper into the body, like I said, some of it's going to just reflect back to the transducer. Some of it's going to keep going through the body, and that's why sound is continually losing energy as it attenuates. Think about your ultrasound. As you go through your ultrasound, it gets deeper, it gets darker in the far field, right? Think about when you're doing that right liver. You know, you're doing that right liver and transverse, say the third picture with the portal vein, right? Transverse right liver with the portal vein, the third right liver image. When you look at how big the liver is as a structure, it's probably, 14 centimeters deep at that time, you know? But when you get to like about 12, 13 centimeters, it's a little darker at that area. That's why the placement of the focus is so important, because once you move the focus down, then it's going to kind of even out your whole image. Or moving your TGCs, but remember, because that controls the gain at different depths. Okay? We know sound gets weaker as it propagates, so the transducer and ultrasound machine must be sensitive enough to receive and process these weak reflections into an image. As sound propagates, we know that sound may also change direction, meaning that sound doesn't remember, it's traveling in a straight line. So when it hits something, and depending on the angle it hits it, it's gonna bounce off at a specific angle. It's not gonna bounce and curve around something. It's gonna travel. Remember, we said that's one of the rules of sound. It's gonna travel in a straight line. So if it bounces and hits something, then it's going to, it's gonna, like, this is our aorta right here. Sound's gonna bounce, boom, and it may bounce this way, which is why we're not able to see when we measure. That's why we're always kind of blind when we're looking at our transverse image on our aorta, right? Or when we're measuring our transverse measurement of the aorta, because the boundary of that aorta on the lateral aspect is not going to be directly hit by a sound beam. Okay? But that's why this anterior and posterior wall, they're always really, really clear. Correct? When you think about that, the anterior posterior wall is always really, really clear because it's directly perpendicular to the sound beam. Yes, ma'am.
Just have a question. Which sound reflects back the fastest?
I'm sorry?
Which sound reflects back the fastest? Because you said this more sound continues to propagate, and some sound goes back to the transducer faster than that continues.
Right. The depth determines, how fast it's gonna. The deeper it has to travel, that's gonna take that sound longer to get back. Okay. Also, the speed of that medium, because sound is actually speeding up and slowing down as it's traveling through different mediums. So, like, say for instance, like there's an artifact called, it's like a misplacement artifact where if sound is traveling really fast on a reflector, like you have a mass or something that's like it's like a cyst or something. Sometimes that cyst can be misrepresented on the depth because it's going to be represented a lot. In the near field, it can be misrepresented the depth because sound is traveling so fast through it that it's nothing blocking. It's going to reflect back a lot sooner. So sometimes, like fluid artifacts can be reflected in the wrong space because of how fast it's coming back to the transducer. You got it? Whereas some of the sound is still traveling, and those are going to be reflected at the proper depths. Okay. That's just an example. When you get to talking about artifacts, you're going to come back and be like, aha, I know what you're talking about. All right? So as sound waves propagate, they also change direction. Sound waves weaken or attenuate as they travel in the body. Guys, remember, when we're talking about attenuation, we're just talking about weakening of the sound. Okay? Weakening of the sound intensity. All right? Weak reflectors that come back to the transducer and ultrasound system are strengthened or amplified. Okay? That happens automatically, but we also have the power to strengthen and amplify our signals. I'll show you on the next slide. Okay? However, in diagnostic ultrasound, we're concerned about the degree of attenuation, as in how much attenuation is occurring to these beams, to our sound beam. Okay? And also the extent of application. How much amplification is needed to make this image diagnostic. All right? Decibel notation is a tool used to report these changes. Okay? These decibels are based on a mathematical construct called logarithms. So guys, we have the big umbrella would be a logarithm. Decibel notation fits under that. It's a type of logarithmic mathematical construct. Okay? So the umbrella, logarithm, under that would be decibels. Okay? Decibels also measure what, guys? What acoustic parameters does decibels measure? Amplitude, absolutely. Or we're talking about the strength, right? The magnitude of that sound, right? Because that's what amplitude describes. All right? So, like I said, guys, we know that this is our transducer. As it travels in time, you see it's going to get weaker. The sound is going to get weaker. It's going to go through the body, then sound's going to reflect back from the body back to the transducer. This is why I put the ultrasound system. Ultrasound system comes with amplifiers, which is what we use. We use amplifiers because we have different ways to do that. So when the reflected sound comes back from the body, they're going to be weaker, right? They're going to come back weak because they're not going to come back with the same intensity that was sent out, because we know that it attenuated or lost intensity as it traveled. So when it bounces back, it's not going to reflect back at an equal intensity. Okay? So that's why we have the amplifiers on the ultrasound system, so we can get our signal back up, so we're able to create a diagnostic image. Okay? Some ways to get that we amplify our signals would be our gain control, right, guys? Don't we turn up our gain when something's too dark, or if it's too bright, don't we turn our gain down? That's an amplification device right there. We're actually amplifying the system, or the echoes, when we adjust our gain. Okay? Another way we adjust our amplification would be our TGCs, right? Because those are just amplification at a certain depth, correct? From near field to the far field, which is why there's always kind of an angle when you're adjusting TGCs like this, because our bottom of the TGCs are going to have to be a lot brighter to compensate to make that image overall even. Like, for example, we're talking about our liver, right? Mm-hmm. Okay? So these are two ways that we as a technologist, can adjust our amplification. Remember, amplification, we're talking about amplification, that occurs during reception. okay? When we amplify our system, that occurs during reception, okay? Because we also have the power control, right? Or the output power button or acoustic power, right? That remember when I showed you guys what that button does? When we turn it down, doesn't it turn down the gain or the overall brightness of that image, right? But when we adjust our power, our acoustic power, we're adjusting the transmitted signal, okay, before it even goes to the patient. So when we change our power, our acoustic power, we're affecting our patient dose, right? Because we're turning our acoustic power. Remember, that's before the transmit signal. That's adjusting the transmit signal. Gain and TGC, that's doing reception. So it has no effect on our patient dose. That's why we always want to use the least amount of acoustic power, and we really would love to amplify our gain control and our TGCs, because that's gonna that's gonna practice our law principles as low as reasonably achievable. Okay, so when that question come on the registry, which like if they show you an image like these two, which is a really bright intensity right here, or they show you this image right here. So if I wanted to correct this image, what would I do first? I would turn down, no, I wouldn't turn down the gain. I would turn down my acoustic power, because that's affecting the patient dose, right? I'm going to turn that down so that patient has as little amount of patient dose as possible. Exposure. Yes, ma'am.
Gain's a little different though.
What do you
It was
mean?
me. We all said to turn on the gain. Like, is there a way what's the difference that's not the gain, it's the power?
Yeah, remember I showed you when we had knobology? I showed you guys with all the acoustic power buttons. If you're using the IU22, you press next, output power. Remember, acoustic power goes by many names. We're going to learn those in the future. It has like 8 names for acoustic power, output power, power output, you know. So if I have a really bright image and I need to, and it's too bright, yeah, I can turn my gain down, but the technically right thing to do for the patient would be to adjust my acoustic power, turn that down so I can lessen the amount of dose going to the patient. Just the opposite, if I have a lower amplification or a lower intensity image like this, where it's really dark overall, mind you guys, buttons like power control and gain, they're adjusting the overall image, the whole image. They're changing the intensity of the whole image. Where TGC, that's only changing it at a particular depth. All right. So if I have something with lower amplification, first thing I would do would not be to turn my power up. It would be to use my gain settings to turn that up, because remember, gain and TGC occurs during reception, not during transmission like output power. We're good there, guys? We're clear? Any questions? Ask questions, guys. I'm inviting questions.
We don't have that.
What, acoustic power? We do. It's a knob. It's a knob. You can clearly see it on Toby, the machine, the first machine number 1. It's
Toby.
right on the console. It's a big button like on the front facing, not the flat part, but the front facing. IU22, yes, it's on the touch screen. When you hit the next button, it's one of those knobs at the bottom. It has output power right there. So when y'all go to clinic, just adjust those things, just mess with it so you can see what it is. But whenever you change your, when you put it on abdomen, you put it on your preset, the acoustic power and stuff is already adjusted, okay? All right. What are the numbers? The preset number, I don't know, it changes according to the different anatomy you're using, different transducer you're using, okay? So the output power won't be the same transducer to transducer, okay?
But we said we can change the power, because this is, the power is fixed by the manufacturer.
Right, but we're changing the acoustic power. The acoustic power, we were talking about the transducer, like as far as the power coming for that transducer, that's already fixed. But you can't adjust the system acoustic power as far as the power that the machine is putting out or not putting out. So that is a button that is adjustable on the machine. All right, we're good here, guys? All right. So let's talk about logarithms and decibels. A logarithm or log is a novel method of rating numbers. That's a really vague explanation that the book gave you, right? So I went to Merriam-Webster and got the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of it, right? So logarithm, actually guys, I'm supposed to delete this. It's not supposed to be decibel. I made a completely different slide for that. I gotta delete that. So if you got it right there. All right. So a logarithm is also a quantity representing the power to which a fixed number, the base, must be raised to produce a given number.